Welcome. Molly. Welcome everyone to a special Friday the 13th October broadcast.
We call this Molly Got Trapped in the Asylum.
Friday the 13th edition. Da, da, da.
Oh my gosh. So if you guys can't tell, tonight's really special because, first of all, there's a fire. Hello. Fire. Mm-hmm. Second of all, I am joined by not only my other half, Joey Morris, but I am also joined by what I consider to be another elusive half. That's how fractions work. Shut up.
We're math good.
We're in the asylum for a reason. Yeah.
Molly, Joey, say hi. Say hello.
Hello, everybody. Happy Friday the 13th. Thanks for being here. And thank you to Chris for being the hostess with the moustess and inviting us to come hang out. And for building us this lovely cozy fire.
I built it myself. I one by one, I carried the logs in, which really means I basically brought in my Kindle.
I cut down the tree myself.
Yeah.
And I rubbed the rocks together.
Yes.
It sounds like it could be a Kindle advert. No more logs need to be chopped down. Amazon Kindle.
Oh my gosh. All right, guys. So as you can see, this is going to be a really fun broadcast already. So, Joey, are you going to say hi? Like, officially?
No, freaking everyone knows who I am.
All right, don't worry about Joey the ghost.
The presence is felt.
Yes. Yes. All right. So, all tonight, like that's it. No, tonight is about wonderful things. Tonight, shh, you guys, you're killing my intensity.
Sorry.
I can't help it. All I can see is your reflection in the Kindle, and then when it comes,
oh my God, yes!
I see my face in the Kindle.
We're from the beyond.
On fire.
This face is on fire.
It took a very dark turn for me. I'm like burning in the infernos of hell behind me.
Just angle it at me a little bit more.
There you go.
Or you can only see when I gesture. There we go. Oh my gosh. Okay, so tonight is the night that we take back and give a nice salute, a tip of the hat, or of the ovaries, I suppose, if you will. Don't tip your ovaries.
Don't tip your ovaries.
Anyway, I mean, if you wish. But tip of the hat to the strong, independent, wild, or labeled quote-unquote dark goddesses and women that have inspired us and moved us. And we're going to be telling stories and talking about some of our favorites. And of course I had to have Molly for this, duh.
I'm excited. I'm ready. The whole entire day, I was listening to a playlist, and that the goddess is alive and the magic is afoot song kept coming on. Yes. Talk about this tonight. It's great. It's gonna be metal. I'm excited.
It's gonna be metal. Yes. And then, as always, you know that I always have Joey around when we're talking about this kind of thing, because I literally can't talk about it without her around, guys.
It's contracted by law.
It's so ingrained now that she'll just finish the other half of my sentence regardless. So
yeah,
somewhere off in the wilderness, she'll finish the other half. So you guys will only get the first half of a sentence. So I have to have her here.
Yeah, it's a need.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so who's in chat? Hi Shakti, hi Tracy, hi Pixie Doo, hi Julie, B, Everin, Crystal Moon, Debbie. Oh, we got a bunch of people. Bombastus, Melanie, Lunafont. I like that name.
Hi everybody.
Sweet Susie, hello.
It's a much better time for Americans because loads of people are able to see.
Yeah, it's like 6, 7 o'clock for us, depending where you are.
I can't do this regularly, but
Yeah,
It's
yeah, and
midnight.
special thank you to Joy because it is definitely midnight where she is.
Sticking it out. Holy cow. Yeah.
it's the witching hour. In fact, I stayed up past the 13th. It's no longer October the 13th where I am.
Oh my god.
Missed it, gone.
So first of all, I would like to know what everybody's drinking, eating. What is your snackage and drinkage that you have brought to the campfire?
Joey has to show hers first because it's the cutest.
Yes.
I have a little ghost. It's a little Milky Bar ghost for Friday the 13th. And then I just have cherry Pepsi because it was easy.
All things are welcome by the campfire. Join us.
I've got
That didn't sound creepy at all. Join us.
No, that's the purpose. I wanted to sound. I'll get the flashlight.
Don't make me pull it. I'm drinking some extra chocolatey hot cocoa, not on purpose, but because I can't measure a little bit of coconut milk and some, what am I trying to say? Some hot pepper flakes. So.
Oh, yes. Spicy. Yes.
Oh, the best hot chocolate.
Okay, can we talk about your mug for a minute? Show them your mug.
Who, me?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's got a spoon coming out of his head, but just, we all have problems.
All right. I like it.
Yes. Well, okay, so I didn't have a female one, and I was like, well, let's celebrate the dark side then. It's close enough.
We'll go there. I'm into it. I believe in it. Yeah.
Well, I can do it. I can do it. The new Star Wars trailer is all about the dark side taking over, and that's a strong female lead.
Boom! Just got tied in. See, this is why she's here. I told you she's the other half of the explanation.
There's lots of reasons why.
No, it's not. There's a lot of them. That's many of them.
No, that's it. I just do a couple of pieces of snaffles. That's it.
Yeah. So I've got hot chocolate in mine, extra chocolatey on purpose.
There you go.
It's a problem. And then I also have a caramel apple that at some point I'm going to try to cut.
Ah, there's a knife!
She brought a knife to a gun show.
This could be horrible. We'll see.
Live entertainment.
I was going to try and get a marshmallow to just kind of fake.
Can you see
But then I would have had
face?
to eat it sadly at some point. Oh, it's got a... Hold on, I need to click
It's got
that.
a face.
It definitely has a face.
Yeah.
That's a big...
Okay, anyway.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Perfect.
You had a position perfectly around your hair, so it was like it was you for a second. It was kind of funny. Oh my goodness. Okay, so guys,
You're welcome.
when I ask you who like one of the first people that you think of when you think of like dark goddess, heroine, wild independent, any of these, what's like one of your first ones that you think of right out the bat?
Ooh, fun game. Okay.
Yes. So we'll go to Joey first because she's chewing and I want to put her on the spot.
Yeah.
I can't wait for what the screen cap is going to be for the...
All of us laughing. Oh my goodness.
If it's not the little face from the chocolate ghost, I will be disappointed. Well, it's obviously my first thought is Morrigan.
Right.
If we're going for a dark goddess first, then that's immediately where I go for obvious reasons, because she's the one, Babe particularly, that I work with. Not exclusively by any means, but most prominently, she's the deity who I have in my matron connection with. So that's where I go immediately with dark goddess energies.
Mm.
I think
matter. You're pulling faces.
No. Oh, I don't know. I was just trying to find out why someone's trying to report a channel in the chat. I didn't see anything. I don't know. Anyway, yes, Molly, what about you?
if we're playing like the association game, the
Yes.
first things that come to mind aren't inherently witchy and in the deity realm. We'll get to that though. But the first one I think that I was exposed to as a kid, definitely the evil queen from Snow White. For sure. As a sorceress. I think Maleficent's in there too. I think Disney for a lot of us are. I think for a lot of us that's sort of our first real exposure to sorcery and witchcraft in that way that we have a strong visual with. That's definitely there, as well as the Wicked Witch of the West. I remember being a little kid and actually being very afraid of that movie. The monkeys freaked me out. I love it now. It has a special place in my heart now. But thinking about that kind of dark goddess idea, that dark woman, for me, those would be the first ones from childhood, I think. I also work with Baba Yaga, so that dark goddess form for me. I don't work with her as much as Diana and not in the same ways. I use her more as a way to connect to my ancestry or to other women in my family who are from the part of the world where she originates from. But I think those are the strongest impressions that come forward first.
I loved Maleficent. I used to dress up like Maleficent all the time. I had what?
Ursula.
Ursula is another.
Ursula was my bitch.
The problem with the Ursula one is we end up singing it or saying that body language.
I did a burlesque number to that song as a dominatrix, and that was probably my favorite.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think mine. I mean, I think for me, I go to hell for one because that's one of the main ones I work with, and Hecate. But
right.
Honestly, some of the first ones I think of is like not necessarily what you would probably denote as dark right off, which is like cartoons, which is like Daria and Tank Girl, and you know what I'm saying? Like, even though she's like comic, there was still like that era of a lot of them. And we could even go to singers because music was like huge for me.
Oh yeah.
So like oh crap, I'm brain farting on her name right now. Really
Yep.
Really mind. This is happening, brain. Lead singer of Garbage, Shirley Manson.
There you go.
She has always been like, just like, this is who I am, and very unapologetic about it, and just like, I'm gonna be how I am. I'm gonna look how I want. Like, you know, I love that about her. Gosh, and then also, you guys might not know about a band called My Ruin.
Not familiar. Okay.
Terry B of My Ruin is very similar in that way. She's always been very like, she did spoken word and stuff for a while too. Okay. And I was pretty much fascinated with her. And she has always been very like, basically, fuck what you say, I'm gonna be who I am. In this like growly, like, you know, sludgy kind of way, if that makes sense, which I love.
Yes.
So a lot of mine go to like music stuff, cartoons, things like that.
I think on that note, I think for me too, one of the other early memories I have of really kind of first experiencing that kind of like righteous anger or this a female artist that was really forwardly aggressive. And if any of you are like early 90s kids, Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill was the first record I ever owned, and I think I was like 11 when that came out, and I remember singing along to it like, yeah, I have problems too. But I remember that, and I still remember the lyrics to those songs, but I remember her being a figure that was like, wow, you can put yourself out into the world this way, and that she was really unapologetic about her whole spectrum of emotions and experience. That there were a lot of really beautiful, sensitive songs on that record, but there were a lot of just righteous anger songs. And then also just sort of the unique quality of her voice. Nobody at the time sounded quite like her. I mean, you could put her in a camp with Ani DeFranco, but honestly, when Ani Anita Frank was really popular in the 90s. I was like a little young to kind of grasp, you know, the enormity of kind of what she was trying to talk about.
Yeah.
But I remember, Alanis Morissette being one of those people when I was young too, that I would put in that like bad bitch category. Yeah.
Yeah, she was one of the first ones too.
The lead singer of In This Moment does that for me a bit as well, because I don't know what her name is, thinking about it, but she does some songs and she has such a beautiful voice, and then in other songs she's full on metal screaming, and you're like, holy cow, that is range, like from this pretty voice to full on metal screaming. And then she challenges all the conceptions of how women are supposed to look.
Exactly.
So let me see what people are saying in the chat. So they're like, now I really want to watch Little Mermaid. Someone's like, what about Coraline?
Oh, I love
That's
Coraline.
a good one.
That's a great
I love just about everything that he's ever written, but you know, his female characters are amazing in general. His characters are amazing in general. God, Gail Gaiman, I love Neil Gaiman. But yeah, Coraline is edgy.
Yeah, well, and she's headstrong. She knows what she wants and what she doesn't want, and she just like dives right in. You know?
Yeah.
No, don't go there. What? You mean go there? Yes, please.
I heard go there.
Rasputina.
Oh, they're fabulous. Yes.
And Everin says, oddly enough for her, Enya.
I can see that.
I could see, yeah.
Yeah, well, she definitely has the I don't need anyone but myself vibe.
It's
in
kind
her
of
mansion with her cats.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dream to like live in a castle by yourself with a bunch of cats. Like, I don't know what's not perfect about this.
That's
serious goals. Ooh, just extra Friday the 13th here. It's like deluging. It just got super dark and started to.
Everyone, get your flashlights.
Oh, my sister introduced me to Princess Mononoke when I was 9. I fell in love with Sam. I feel you on Princess Mononoke.
Yeah.
I feel you on Ghibli heroines in general, because the thing about Studio Ghibli movies, they're Japanese anime Disney, basically, if you don't know what we're talking about. His heroines, and given that he's a Japanese author as well, it goes a little bit against the general culture in Japan, but his heroines are always headstrong, and they're always, even if they start off a little bit on the apprehensive side, they end up by the fruition of the journey like coming into their power, and it's such an empowering thing. And half the time there's no love story either. Like with Disney, there's nearly always a love story, and with the Ghibli ones, it's not always about that at all. And sometimes it's friendship, sometimes it's family, sometimes it's duty and honor. He does amazing work.
Oh, Angela from Arch Enemy.
That's another one. I would throw Wendy O in there too. I didn't find out about her until later on in my life. So when we were talking about initial sort of first reaction impressions, I can think of lots of artists, but Arch Enemy is definitely out there.
Yeah. You know, as we're talking about this, I was thinking, and I'm like, you know, one of the oldest ones that I can think of listening to that was like, wow, this is a woman like doing what she loves, just like being really free and expressive, is Stevie Nicks.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, like, who else is like Stevie Nicks? There is one Stevie Nicks.
That's true. There are a lot of people who idolize her and I think attempt to capture her, especially, I mean, her fashion sense is so iconic, but the way she was able to write about her subject matter, I think is so elegant, but at the same time, super straightforward. It's not real flowery. She just cuts to it. I got to be honest, I didn't come to Stevie Nicks again until later in my life, because when I was a kid, it was like, ew, that's like mom and dad music, and this is boring. But when you grow up, and I think you have more experiences, so you can relate to the content.
I don't know. I grew up singing Annie Lennox. So.
Yeah.
Sisters are doing it for themselves. I was at 10-year-old or whatever, I used to go around singing that at my sisters. So
I don't know. I think we come to artists when they're right for us, when we're ready for them.
Oh yeah. And sometimes like we come to them and then we leave and then we revisit later even.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had that happen with a lot of like classic metal bands throughout the years. Like I'll forget how much I loved them, and then like I find them again later, and I'm like, why did I stop? Yeah.
Yeah, the rediscovery can be just as fun. Yeah.
Yes.
my rediscovery horrifies me because then you remember Aqua and Barbie Girl. Stuff like that. And you're like, oh, yeah.
It can't all be poetry, you know?
You know, something I'm noticing, though, in all of these is that it was women who, like, dared to be themselves. Like, dared to make their own lane, like, create it, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of the other ones for me, too, was Patti Smith. When I came to her, that really exposed me to just a whole different way of being. I mean, I think she embodies that sort of boho archetype, not in a fashion way, but in that like a Renaissance woman. All of the things that she was capable of and contributed, I think, and a way of presenting yourself was so interesting and so different. I mean, at the time was revolutionary, and that the work still stands the test of time and people are still coming to that work, and she's still continuing to make great work is, I think, also aspirational. So, absolutely.
Yeah, Cyndi Lauper does that for me as well in some ways, and she's maybe what you consider a bit of a, you wouldn't consider her dark on the surface of it at all. But
she's definitely edgy.
But she definitely is, you know, in her own element and brings her own style and flair and kind of, I don't care, this is who I am. And she wrote one of the big girl power anthems. Yes. So to this day, that still gets quoted for, you know, female power and things. So.
Yeah, and the activism work that she does too, I think, just continues to elevate the body of work and just multiplies my respect for her in so many aspects. And it's funny that you say that, because another character that I was thinking of, I was trying to go back and like, what other characters, and we were talking about like Tank Girl and cartoon stuff, I automatically attribute Cyndi Lauper to Delirium from Sandman, from the Immortals. I'll talk about Neil Gaiman. I automatically move them together. And that sort of chaos femme. I could see that. Susie Sue. Yes, we can't have this conversation without talking about Susie. Yes, absolutely. I feel like we could have an entire talk just about the goddess. It's all music right now and cartoons. Real quick, though, I need to give a shout out to the person who said Etta James. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. There's so many good ones. Yeah, there's so many. I mean, that's why I was like, no, this goes beyond goddesses, because there are many women that are iconic, you know, in pop culture even, that are still personifying that.
Mm-hmm. And in literature too. I can think of half a dozen Roald Dahl female characters that greatly influenced me growing up, when like reading about Matilda and the witches and things like that growing up, and that's elements of powerful women and stories that they told. So literature too. I feel like we can't have this conversation either without mentioning Morticia Addams. I think is sort of a figure that has appeared for a lot of us. Yes. For so many, I feel like we could just have an entire live stream talking about why Morticia Addams is a feminist goddess hero to generations of mall goths. And as much as I love Morticia, I'm a Lily girl, so I also still have to give a shout out to Lily. That too. Even though she took care of her family and stuff, and like, you know, it was her choice. She was in there like essentially running the family still. Like she did. She took care of stuff, and she was more perhaps the housewifey, if you will, but that still doesn't disempower her. Like she still was a very strong character. So like, and I love Morticia too. I'm not hating. I just always was a Lily fan. I can't help it. There's room for everybody. There's room for everybody. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Linda Perry. Yeah. Oh my gosh, guys. Janis Joplin, I freaking loved as a kid. It was a problem. Like, I had really long hair, and my natural hair is about her color. And I used to wear those round sunglasses all the time. My brother would nicknamed me Janice.
So you said Janice, and all I hear is Rocky Horror Picture Show in my head now. I know that's Janet, but still.
Damn it.
Oh my
Janet.
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 But that had some characters too. Magenta.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of them. Morticia was sassy. Wednesday Addams is also, yeah. I think Wednesday, even though like she was younger, is still.
Oh, yeah.
I love that her character, her job was to be a fly on the wall and just say what everybody was thinking. That she was just the truth. That would pop into the conversation, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Ah! So
yes, everyone sing Rocky Horror and then
I know everyone's in the chat now doing that or Bobby McGee.
Janet.
See, Beyonce had some strong female power songs, as did Janet Jackson. Yeah. I think that who I really liked is Missy Elliott.
Oh,
Definitely had her.
Missy Elliott came onto the scene, which she really didn't like come onto it new, because she actually had been like doing stuff behind the scenes for a long time. But she came onto the main stage scene, we'll say, in the spotlight with completely her own style. Joey is dying.
It's just ghosting.
Joey, hang on. I don't know. I got excited. Everything went to pot. I have no idea. Whee!
Yeah, I remember like when she came on, people had two responses. Either they were like, "This is weird, I love it," or they were like, "What the hell is happening?"
I just loved that she was so far out at the time. It was all the women were all very samey, and she was just completely outside of that and unapologetically outside of it as well.
Yeah.
In mainstream pop music, at least.
And then, I mean, there's even more beyond the pop. I mean, let's look at like artists and stuff, and Frida is a good one.
Frida's my jam. I'm trying to think of a couple other painters off the top of my head. Living painters, Camille Rose Garcia is one of my favorite female painters that's currently working. But
yeah, the other day too, I was told about what was her name? Write it down because I write everything down. Yes, I did. Judy Chicago, who did something called The Dinner Party that I have to look into. That sounded really cool. Someone was telling me about that. It's like an entire setup where it's like a dedication to the different women who have created advancements for women throughout, history. And so there's like places set where like the plate and everything is designed and dedicated to different aspects of that woman. And then like there's like a whole set of it. And then the table is setting on tiles that have the names of people under that. And there's like hundreds, I think. So like just the entire thing is just awesome. Like I need to read more about it.
It sounds fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, so I mean there's art, there's literature, because back in the day women weren't allowed to write.
And tons of their work was accredited to men so that it could be public.
Yeah. Powerpuff Girls. Yeah.
How did we not talk about that? I completely forgot about it. Thanks for bringing it up. Yeah.
You know what? What was the name of it? Mandy and Grimm and them. Mandy.
Oh, yeah.
Mandy was one of those too.
Yeah. I mean, I could do anime as well if you wanted.
Oh my gosh. Yes. There's so many. There's so many.
There is.
And then like goddesses. Okay. So honestly, I would classify Diana in there too. Like, even though people don't necessarily think of her as dark right off the bat, she's definitely wild independent.
I would definitely.
Well, a lot of people though, when they think of her, I don't think they would. I think they would kind of go, you know, to like the lighter aspect of things. But even though she is like a warrioress, you know what I mean?
Oh.
I would say, yeah, I think she gets boxed in as sort of this, well, she's a lovely lady of the moon, and what's not lovely about the moon, right? And protector of baby bunnies and little girls and this sort of thing. And to be frank, that's part of why I think I avoided working with her for such a long time, because she felt so, I don't know, I didn't see how any of those experiences related.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot to say in defense of Artemis or Diana, depending on, I realize some people classify them as different goddesses, but the archetype, if we're going to talk about that for the sake of this conversation, the archetype is very similar of the divine huntress. And a lot of their functions are very similar. There were some additions to Diana after she was Romanized, but I would definitely speak in her defense of also being a dark goddess, because this idea that she is of the wilderness and she is a feral goddess. I don't know about you, but I don't want a feral animal in my house.
Right.
Your kitty cat versus a feral cat are very different ideas. There's a lot in her mythology where she is a fairly wrathful
I was gonna say Calypso might argue with the fluffy bunny.
Yeah, she like kills a lot of people. She's pretty intense with dishing out punishment, and I think she also speaks a lot about the life-death cycle. You know, like we think about the huntress in this very sort of like athletic way, but it's also hunting is about killing.
Yeah. That's
killing
what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
And you have that blood and that sacrifice at the end. That the hunt has a purpose. We were talking about hunting earlier with when we were talking about Angroboda and the survival energies. Can I say Jormungandr again because it's fun?
Go ahead.
Jormungandr. And Diana has that energy. Sorry, I just love that word so much.
Go ahead.
And Diana has that energy too of like, it's a really odd, like people will sort of look at her as being like a virgin goddess, and then it's like, oh well, she must just be pure and soft.
But virgin didn't mean the same thing then.
No, it meant unmarried, and we've changed the word again. So like we were talking about earlier, the way that words are slippy.
Context is so important. Right.
Absolutely.
So yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that whole life-death life cycle, and also you cannot create life without taking life.
Yeah.
Even if you're in that harm none camp and that's something that you ascribe to, it's actually not possible to live on this planet and not harm some other being or organism in the duration of your life, whether you intend to or not. And taking responsibility for that or recognizing it. I think she's tied very strongly to that. And the idea of freedom, when we were talking about too, the feral part, freedom, to tie it back to our Janice Joplin comment before, the idea that, you know, freedom is another word for nothing
just
left.
Another word for nothing left to lose.
The real idea of freedom is terrifying. To be tethered to nothing, to be tied to nothing, that's a really big, for me, that's a frightening idea.
This feels like a goddess hell thing, being tied to nothing.
Yeah, really. So, and I also think she's very much anti-establishment.
Oh yeah,
and anti-patriarchal, even for the time, even the way we're experiencing her through the lens of history, which is not her history, that even in her time and the way she had been molded to fit the time, she doesn't have a consort in the way other deities in her pantheon do. In some tales, she has lovers, but she's not. I guess you could consider Apollo the closest thing she has to a consort, which is this brother connection.
Yeah.
But she's also considered an illuminator, a luminary, which I know you guys talk about a lot, and I love hearing your discussions about this, that, a dark isn't a bad thing, dark isn't an evil thing, and light isn't always a positive thing. And in my personal, I'd love to see if anybody in the chat, or if you guys have anything to say about this too, that in working with her as an illuminator does not mean that it's all fluffy. It's like we shine light on things to make them better. Like, I think of the illuminator as, like, if you ever close out a dance club and it's bar time and they flip the lights on and you're like, oh my God, that's what's in here. I think the illuminator.
That's the perfect analogy.
The illuminator has that function as well.
Yeah.
So it's not always just a sending of light to things, but the light showing you what things really are. And sometimes
it's revealing truth, whether you're ready for it or not.
Yeah. So that, I would say, that's my piece on my defense as of Diana as a, if not a balanced, a darker goddess. And I think a lot of people are willing to give her credit for. I think part of that is too, though, where I know when I started working with her, I was hungry for something, that idea of something pure and strong and good and solid and easy to digest. And she's so much more. She's so much more. You get drawn in initially, which I think is great, and I do still work with her in those aspects. But the hunter isn't just about getting what you want. The hunter is also about how do you not be destroyed by the thing you're hunting? Do you need to hide out? How do you track it? She's
knowing the time's right. Yeah.
Survival and instincts, yeah.
Absolutely.
Artemis is a goddess, Morgan Hemrick says, Artemis is the goddess I work most closely with now. Her role as illuminator for me has a lot to do with radical acceptance and having a full awareness of things which are not always comfortable.
I tell you a goddess that I always find absolutely fascinating.
Just one?
No. Thank you. But it's the Sekhmet.
Yeah, someone just mentioned her.
Let's go there.
And she's ferociousness incarnate. And it's just one of those goddesses where the mythos is the bloodlust of this goddess cannot be stopped. They had to drug Sekhmet to make her stop. Like, they drugged wine and blood and fed it to her to make her stop her wrathful vengeance. Because that was her role in that myth. For Ra, she was his ferocity, his judgment, his wrath. And some people think Bast and Sekhmet are the same, like they're aspects of the same energy. I don't think so. I think they have very, very separate energies and entities to it. But Sekhmet for me has always been one of those really fascinating goddesses that really challenge the concept of what it is, to the point where obviously the Egyptian gods take on animalistic form. So it kind of removes almost the gender thing and it becomes more of an animalistic. What are you doing, Chris? Are you cutting your apple?
Good night.
It's just like, this is clearly the time for weapons. Yeah.
I didn't even notice. I was like so sucked into this like beautiful description that
I was like, well, while she's talking about ferociousness, I'm just gonna cut this thing in half. Yes. Wait a minute. Why don't you tell me more about that ferociousness?
And they had to feed her apple slices to make her stop. Yeah.
You know, I don't think as Vast and Sekhmet as the same person either.
No.
Like, I mean, I can see how some people would, like, maybe join them, but my experiences with them are very different.
I mean, some have also said that is it Hathor is the other side of Sekhmet? That's been said as well. And I always feel like, no, I don't feel like that's a thing either. I just see them as themselves and the different sort of energies and personalities and things that they embody. And for me, Sekhmet is always challenging. It's always about challenging wherever you are at any given point. So she brings this energy of like ferocious change. Like there is no middle ground with goddesses like Sekhmet.
Sorry.
No, it's so vivid.
Ah, yes, now it's so vivid. Yes, what she said. She says, Kim, are you going to address this? Should I wait?
Can I? Because I just did a whole article all about it. I've just done a whole blog post all about Medusa. So,
do it up. That's fine. I'll just eat my apple. It's okay. Go ahead.
Snack time.
I just did it, and I'm so excited. I love because I've been friggin' talking about Medusa and Athena and their relationship and how that relationship gets portrayed as Athena was wrathful and blamed Medusa. And I was like, in my blog post, I was like, I don't feel that that's what's happened. I feel like that's a misinterpretation of the myth. I feel like, given that Athena was called the serpentine goddess in the myths by Ovid, that actually making Medusa serpentine and able to defend herself from future unwanted male advances and made her into a strong character who was all about rejecting the social norm for looks was actually a gift, a boon. And in my kind of working through my, like, because I feel out the energies and things when I'm writing and talking about mythology and goddesses and their priestesses and so on and so forth, it hit me at one point. I was like, I wonder if both Athena and Medusa were originally meant to be homosexual. And because they rejected male advances, Athena is described as one of the three goddesses that Aphrodite could not sway into like relationships with men and in the mythology. And Medusa chose to be a chaste priestess of Athena rather than give herself to her many admirers.
Medusa was like, F this, I'm going home.
Yeah. So I wondered that. I wondered if there was and the myth kind of, the way the myth gets distorted through the patriarchal Hellenistic retelling, because once the Greeks got super patriarchal, things started getting a bit interesting in the mythology.
Yeah.
So I just wrote all about that. You can check that out if you're interested, by the way, on the blog. It's there. It's all about snacks.
Yes. Snacks.
Ooh, can I ask a question?
Yeah. No, we're just here to have you be pretty. Go ahead.
To continue on with that thread that Joey was going on, how do you guys feel about revisionist myth telling? Do you think it's important? Do you think it degrades the meaning of the story? Do you think it's something that occurs naturally? I'm interested to know what you think.
Yeah, I think one, it's important because I think it's good to look at stuff from multiple sides, first of all. Because if we're looking at only one side, we're never seeing the full story. We're never seeing the full truth. So that's the illuminating thing. So yeah, no, I think it's totally good to retell, to look at it in a different way, reinvent. I also think, like you said, it's a natural evolution of things. Because things just kind of, I mean, it's like we're constantly playing telephone. And with things that are going on. Yeah, well, and things that are going on, like, socially with us at the time and whatever it is, of course they're going to flavor. I mean, Joey and I were just saying this about giants and gods earlier today on the live we did about Angerboda. So, like, of course that's going to flavor how things are told as well, because, you know, people see things through whatever their culture is that they've been raised a lot of times. So, and then in a lot of ways for that, whatever it's lacking is the thing that's like rearing its head. It's like the frontiersman trying to be like, oh, there's also this. And I think that's what the retelling is.
I have a love-hate relationship with mythology because on the one hand, I freaking love mythology. I do. I've studied mythology. I studied it at university. I adore mythology.
Mhm.
Mythology has always interested me from being a kid. I had Enid Blyton's Big Book of Greek Myths. I love mythology. But the thing about mythology is that for me, it's basically retellings of stories that are important to the people of the day.
Right.
And we've seen things through their perception, their way of thinking, and that's if it's the people who wrote it at the time, because half of the time myths are retold anyway by different sources outside of the peoples who it belonged to. A lot of the earlier cultures, such as the Celts, were oracular, and the Nords were for a large part as well. And because of that, the translation is through the eyes of Christians usually, who wrote everything down. They were much more into their record keeping, and because they have an agenda, then the mythos takes on an agenda, and it comes Chinese whispers all the way through time. Because things are lost, we don't have half the mythology that was available at the time. You know, things get burned down, libraries completely up in flames, Alexandria, what was in there that we've lost forever. And history is one of these things where it's retold, and it's very Chinese whispers. Like, it's retold by the victors and people in charge, and then if they felt that the myths of the other people were lesser myths, and they can completely wipe out mythologies that we no longer have access to. So when we're sticking really hardcore to certain myths, to me that kind of misses the point. Like, humanity has evolved, and for me, gods have evolved along with them, and the way that the gods, for me, in my mind, have remained relevant to this day is through paganism. It's through an evolutionary process. We cannot say that we practice like people in ancient Greece. We cannot say we practice like people in ancient Egypt. We just can't. We can't know that. We can't know how they practiced. We can't. There's no way to know. History is piecing together what we have left, and then it's opinions on what we have left. So historians guess at what their best guess based on what they have present. And so if somebody completely misinterprets some myth somewhere or mistranslates some myth somewhere, we're getting the whole wrong story. So for me, myth is completely revisionary from point A to now. It gets revised all the time. So
yeah,
I actually think it's our job to revise.
We are the storytellers.
Yes, I think we're telling the same
music
stories.
Makers.
We're telling the same stories, and the same characters exist forever, but the roles that we give them and the purpose of the story, I think, is totally elastic. And I think now in particular, I think it's important for us to do this. One, because I mean, I think it's pretty common knowledge that a majority of these stories that we're reclaiming them in a new way. They weren't, you know, the Greeks didn't write down myths hoping that this would empower women at some point. It was, you know,
probably not.
Definitely not. So we're reclaiming them and repurposing them, and I think it's important for us in a mental health capacity and a spiritual health capacity to reinterpret them and create culture around it, because the perpetuating of toxic ideas and misogynist ideas will just continue to be subversive if we don't decide what this is going to mean to us and tell that story about ourselves.
I'm saving questions over here.
Oh yeah, what's going on in the chat?
So Amaryllis has a question that I definitely want to touch on. Because this is the part that I feel like people always draw like a black and white line down.
Okay.
So Amaryllis says, Molly touched on the consort thing. My question to each of you is, how do you see the masculine counterpart to these strong/dark goddesses? The men/gods who build up instead of tearing them down? Now go to Molly first.
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great question, because I think a lot of the criticism that comes in when we have this kind of discussion is that it's man-hatey or it's misandrist, which I can understand. I can absolutely understand that. I guess from my own personal experience, I would say I'm actually relatively new. I mean, I've spoken about this before, and I'm not uncomfortable telling people that working with the divine masculine in any meaningful way is a really new concept for me. Mostly because I feel like in retrospect, I mean, I've always been drawn to witchcraft. I've always been drawn to this life and these ideas. But I think part of what really encouraged me to fully step into it was feeling crushed by the society I live in. And a lot of that has to do with toxic masculinity, which I don't want to confuse with, you know, masculinity across the board. I don't, yeah, that's not what we're talking about. So just to clarify, that the idea of working with the divine masculine is really, really new. And that I've actually devoted a majority of my life just to studying goddesses, to studying the divine feminine, because I feel like so much airtime has been given to the divine masculine. But what I think is really lovely, the things that I've discovered in delving into that divine masculine arena, is the way it has helped me open up my interpretation and see things about the men in my life. And how they relate, and all of the subtle layers that we give to goddesses. Like we just did this whole, you know, an onion dissection of all the things that Diana could be, you know, to be able to do that with gods and to do that with masculine, positive masculine figures in your life, I think is extraordinarily healing.
Yeah.
So in my personal experience, I kind of tie Diana and Apollo sort of together. They're both luminaries. They are sort of, you know, in their myths are in charge of different things, but they serve actually fairly similar purposes in different arenas. So I don't work directly with Apollo, but I recognize it and understand. I think that that's also part of developing a relationship with a deity, is understanding sort of where they fit in relationship to other deities. So I'll let somebody else jump in on that.
Joe, you want to go first or me?
Sure. I had trouble working with the divine masculine for a very long time. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse at the hands of a male, so I had issues with that. And when the Morrigan came to me, I got a very strong sense of she had all the masculinity and the femininity within her anyway. There was no real separation between the energies of the two. But what was even more healing for me than that is Hades. Because I started working around the energies of Persephone for the store, and Hades was insistent. Like, Hades was following me around. Hades was its shadow in my curtain, to the point where I took a photo and sent it to Chris, like, he is freaking me out. Like,
Truth, I saw it.
You can see the outline of a hooded man with a beard and everything, and when there was a pomegranate on my altar, and then behind you can see, like, this shadow of what looks like Hades.
That was the thing.
For me, connecting to Hades, and my back's tingling now because I'm talking about it. But for me, Hades was hugely healing, because Hades was rejected by the Greeks, just as much as many of the feminine archetypes were. And Hades is also sort of told to, like, kidnap Persephone in a lot of the myth. And as I was delving into it, I just didn't get that vibe. Like, all the rest of the stories about him, all about the energies of him connecting to Persephone. And I've got a whole video talking about how I felt that interaction with those two went. And he came through as sovereign, and he liked order, and he just didn't want the undead walking the earth. And that's the only time he ever really got wrathful, is when people were trying to take the dead where they shouldn't be, and things of that nature.
Can't relate.
Yeah. No zombie. No. So for me, working with Hades in a little bit, and just having conversations with him, although he's largely stoic, apart from when he wants something, he's largely stoic, as death goddesses and gods can often be. It's like, well, when I'm ready to talk to you, I shall. That kind of energy with Hades. So for me, working with him, and he already is challenging perceptions within the Greek pantheon, and then he challenges perceptions as part of working with him. That was hugely healing for me, and I didn't expect that in a million years, because I never thought I would connect to a Greek god or goddess in the same way, in like a personal level.
Mhm.
So yeah,
That's really interesting.
I think, how do I see the masculine counterpart to these? I see the masculine counterpart as being as multifaceted as the women are.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I think that's not explored more, because even though the masculine gets more airtime, it gets more airtime as a very specific archetype. And I don't think that's healthy either. You know, there's a lot of native cultures have a space that the warriors and stuff can go to. And also it happened with the Vestal Virgins as well, to some extent, where they can go and be emotional and purge all of that in a safe environment and be held and accepted like that. And unfortunately, in our society today, I feel like there's not a lot of space for that for men, because it's looked down on.
Yeah.
If you're not 100% always the, you know, quote unquote strong breadwinner, just soldier through. And that's not to say that that doesn't have a place, but I think it needs to be balanced. The entire conversation should be based on balance, and not, you know, an overall, but kind of a swinging thing where, you know, what I can't cover, you jump in. When you can, I'll jump in, and it's a team effort.
We could get even more abstract and say, is deity ever really gender specific anyway, or is it just the way that humans choose to perceive it?
Right.
Well, and I agree with Shakti in the chat that's saying, you know, basically embracing the healthy quote unquote masculine traits within us is good too. I mean, like, learning that side is also learning outside of ourselves, just like. And I mean, the phrases like feminine and masculine even are very slippery, personally.
Very.
Because I find that to be
derogatory.
Yeah, almost. Like, it's another dichotomy thing where it's like we're black and whiting shit that isn't black and white. But because words can only cover so much, we're reaching to the best of our ability, and in the process, we're kind of getting lost.
I feel like this is a whole nother conversation.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh no, just the idea that you're talking about. I'm really interested to see. I would love to see, like, if we could project ourselves 20 years in the future to see what pagan vernacular is like in regard to gender identity, because so much of what we are taught, especially in introductory forms, is that this, you know, the magical world functions in dichotomy. You have to have two opposing sides. We don't talk about a spectrum of possibilities. So I'm really, like we were just talking about with, you know, how does myth adapt and how do our stories adapt? I wonder about how magical language is going to adapt in the future.
Yeah.
I think to be more inclusive, because to me, I think it's absolutely true that, you know, if you were to ask me, do I think God is a woman or do I think God is a man? I'm like, neither.
God.
It doesn't matter. Yeah,
that's actually a thing. Like my mom, when she says God, and people don't realize what she means is all of it. She uses that word because, I don't know, it's better fitting to everything. But when she uses it, she means all of it. And people often assume she means like literal, like Christian God.
Yeah.
And that's not
right.
That's not where she goes with it. But, you know, she lets people assume as they see fit.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. What was I going to say? Crap. I don't know. Basically, though, I was going to say, with the black and white thing that you were talking about and like the need for these two sides, I think that gets really interesting working with Hel, because she is two sides. But she's one body. She's two sides within one. So she's the whole. That's why she's like really against like being broken and, you know, stuff like that, like incomplete. She will tell you she is wholly beautiful. WHO.
It kind of works for the other one as well, though. It kind of works for HOLY as well.
Cliff has joined us. I'm sorry if he's being noisy.
That's all right. That's all right.
Buddy. Shani.
What's going on in chat? Oh my gosh, there's so much. Darkness, light, good, evil, masculine, feminine. We as humans need to categorize to understand. This is the reason we need these labels.
We don't need to. We don't need to. It's just easier, I would argue. I think we've gotten into the habit of categorizing and polarizing. And I think a lot of the problems in society in general is the polarization of things. Even to the idea of like the gender specific stuff that we were talking about, the polarization of what gender is and what it means to be male and what it means to be female and the roles that we assign to that. It's all kind of like a toxic fume that starts with categorizing everything. And I spend a lot of my time now, and me and Chris spend a lot of our time pushing past that thinking and trying to talk to people about pushing
and we
past.
Still catch ourselves in it.
Yeah, we absolutely do, because like we've been taught it. Like Molly was saying, you come into paganism and it's all, this is the masculine side of the altar and this is the feminine side of the altar and this is the god trait and this is the goddess trait. And I remember very vividly getting to a point where I was like, I need to smash this stuff that I've been learning because it doesn't work for me. It feels really, I don't know, it feels like strict and dogmatic, and that's not why I got into paganism in the first place. That was to reject the strict and the dogmatic and the you must follow this way and that way and this rule and that rule, and I didn't like that. I always seen the world in shades of grey. So we don't have to categorize.
Chrome 116 is talking about the Hail rune and how the symbol encompasses all the runes in its geometry, but is also part of the set at the same time. So Hagalaz, which is the Hail rune, is Hell's rune. So just want to add that in. Saying.
Fast fact.
Big ups to Hell. Anyway, yes, I just said big ups to Hell. That happened. You're welcome. I was pretending to roast. Oh, yeah, no, I can. Look.
Chris's famous roasted caramel apple.
Yes.
That actually sounds super delicious.
Toasty. Yes.
I love how your drinking horn is right up against the fire. Like,
oh, yeah, you know. You got to be prepared.
Oh.
Look, I was going to take and light my white sage right behind this so that you guys had real smoke coming up.
Right.
Then I was like, ain't nobody got time. It's too far. Stop. Pull it in. Yes. Anything else? Anything else? So let's take a few questions and then I think we're gonna end it if you guys, because I know it's late.
It's late.
It's late for Chloe.
Okay. So I'll give about another 5 minutes. Get your questions in. Until then, I'm gonna roast this apple. Y'all just take your time.
Shakti asks if Hell has a maiden side and a crone side.
So, Hell is generally depicted as a young woman. And I would say, like, when I say young woman, I mean she is depicted anywhere from, like, in her 20s to, I've seen her be, like, a child before in some pictures. I see her rarely as older, but I think it's more her energy, if you will, that is actually like the quote unquote cronish. But she's fluxy. She actually is all of them and yet none, because she also has a motherly aspect that I'll talk about in the series. That's about.
I just got a message straight from that energy that just went, "Death is ageless."
Yeah, it knows no limit. It just transitions. So, you know, a lot of people assume that she's one, but she's kind of all of them.
There you go.
Just as we are. Boom.
Rejecting boxy thinking.
I don't want your boxes. No, I don't want your boxes.
No, I don't want your box.
No, you can't just end it there. You gotta say plural because otherwise that's just a totally different song.
Well, okay. No.
Okay. Now it's so vivid. Are you all right? Did we just kill you?
A little bit.
Death knows no age.
Double ghost.
Okay. Do you think masculinity and femininity are going out of fashion? Do they have a place in our future? And is defining our terms to make them easier to understand valuable? Oh, she made the tongue sound.
I'm thinking.
Okay.
Because I'm wondering if they have value in so much as concepts. We need to learn the concept, but then we can learn to move beyond the concept. Because without a beginning of a concept to reject, can we then move beyond it? Even if it's only in history books as this existed and this is what it used to be. I don't think any concept is completely without value in that it always has something to teach us, even if it is teaching us to be better human beings by rejecting it.
Random is like, hello, human. I am also human. Shall we love together?
I like that.
I love it. What about you, Molly? What do you think?
I'm gonna be
Right?
honest, and I'm not trying to pass the buck, but I don't know if I have organized enough thoughts on that to answer intelligently and do justice to your question. But I will think about it. And thanks for asking the question. But
yeah.
I agree with a lot of Joey's sentiments there that I don't think there's anything wrong with the words masculine and feminine. I mean, people, I think people and deity and whatever can identify however they choose. I think what we're moving towards in the future is that this idea is more malleable. The idea is more elastic, and that you are allowed to choose what you choose to subscribe to versus society at large making that decision for you. So, but that's a really excellent question, and I'm definitely going to think about it. I think there's blog posts from all of us in that one for sure. Thanks for asking the question.
Yeah. Let's see, for myself, that is one of those questions that you gotta like really sit with.
Yeah.
I mean, going out of fashion sits weird on the tongue for me because I don't know, I'm just kind of like, what the hell does fashion have to do with anything? Is that rude? I'm sorry.
I can tie that in as well because it's the labels we wear.
Yeah.
There you go.
But fashion comes and goes.
Well, so does what we understand as masculine
and
feminine.
Right. So it's kind of like, yeah, everything cycles back around, but in its own way.
Yeah.
So my answer officially from the flux is yes and no.
Straight from the flux.
I'm going with fashion. I like fashion, but I'm just kind of like, fashion goes in and out, so it's fluxing in itself. Says the girl in the black hoodie. Yes, exactly. Hey, I'll have you know this is a native hoodie. It's one of my favorites. It's native threads, culture consciousness, or culture style consciousness. One of my favorites. All right, so that's all, dude. We're done. Because it's late and we have to send Joey to bed. Poor Joey.
Well, Joey has to go find out where Asbjorn is because he went out for snacks and hasn't come back yet.
Maybe he got like somewhere he's on a street with like 1,000 snacks in his arm. Like, Joey!
Yeah.
All right. So I want to say a special thank you to Molly for being on my channel.
Thank you for inviting me. It was my pleasure to be here. And thanks to everybody who came and hung out live and anybody who's watching this in the future. Thank you so much, Chris, for putting it together.
No, absolutely. Thank you. Is there anything like special, anything you want to say, anything going on?
Nothing out of the ordinary. Have some more videos coming out in October. I'm in the process of working on a book that I've been talking to my patrons about a little bit. So I'm going to be having another Art Magic book. The sequel to Art Witch will be coming out early this winter. So that's in the flux at the moment. So that going on.
The flux, yes. And Joey, thank you as always, my other half lovely.
You're most welcome.
Thank you for staying up.
Thank you. It's my fault, and I really appreciate it.
Is there anything going on that you want to say?
Well, I kind of did that already, but I guess we can.
It was on your channel, though. This is my channel.
Oh, true. I forget.
Yep.
It's so
because it's
I
ours.
forget where we
Yeah.
Okay, so for my other half, he has just released a line of Stay True, Stay Awesome t-shirts, and he's super proud of them, and they are pretty damn awesome. So if you want some cool, pagan, very loud t-shirts, you can get them through him. And on my side of the thing, on my side of the bed, I've just released the Forgotten Dead Ancestor spell range.
It's so pretty.
Is very much about reminding us that we are not ever disconnected from our ancestors, even if we don't have living memory of them. And that's going to be available all year round, because you don't just work with your ancestors for Samhain/Halloween.
Yes.
As well as the next in the Realm Journeying Candles, which is Elfheim working with the Light Elves, and that will be available on store in the next couple of days. And I'm going to go live speak with people in Aberdeen about Dark Goddess energy.
That's so exciting.
And healing. And I will be very interested to see how I get on talking to actual people. So
it's going to be great. You're going to do amazing. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you guys for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So some last ones for me. The Hell series, I see someone asking about it. It will start, this is Friday, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The video will be posting on this channel officially. So the first Hell, See You in Hell video will be up. And let's see, I've got paints coming up soon. And then currently today, you got like a few hours left. If you're interested in an ancestral e-course, the Ancestral Work 101 e-course that I have, it is 44% off right now with the code AWEC44. That'll get you 44% off, but it's only until midnight tonight. So, but yeah, that's all I got. So, what?
Get going or get Gavin.
Yes. All right. So, I love your faces. Thanks for watching me butcher an apple with my friends.
Which is basically why we did the video.
Best Friday the 13th.
And eat it from a knife, Angrboda style. You know.
From a knife.
Yeah. That's not a knife. This is a knife.
Ah, yes. All right. So I love all of your faces. Another quick thank you to these beautiful women for being here with me. And I will see you later. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.